Hello there guys, this is Acid and today I'm coming to you guys with a Whisperer guide for AoE and single target. Uh, so as you guys can see, I've already have here a bar. This is my AoE bar, and I've got a second one here for single target. Now I'm gonna go into these in more detail, so if you just want to copy the builds and just play with them on your own, you can just pause the video and copy the bars. If you want to know why and how to use most of these in what combinations, stay tuned for more. Alright, let's jump into the first bar. We've got a rolling with attack percentage, cooldown, and mana cost. Now, Whispers initially have issues with mana, regardless of what you use. So if you got skills that you spam, you want them to cost as less mana as possible, and the rolling skill is a skill that you're gonna spam constantly just to avoid damage from bosses or to get away from certain mobs. So I took bonus damage, cooldown, so I can spam it as much as I can, and then mana cost so it doesn't rip my mana pool. The second one is the Chi of Otherworld. This is pretty easy, but I got crit, cooldown, and crit damage on it, mainly because I just I want the tree to do some damage in case I have it on cooldown and I can switch my bar to the single target. So that way I've got, while the tree is up, it's still gonna do some damage to the bosses and stuff instead of just being there not doing pretty much anything, right? And cooldown reduction, just so, well, cooldown is one of the main stats for Whisperer. Explosive shot, another one that's a really fine skill. I got crit, I got damage, full damage on this one. It has a really big cooldown. There's no point in putting a cooldown run on it. I usually grab the entire rift or something, and just as they're coming on the path towards me, I just use this, and pretty much the first wave is done. And which brings us to the second one, Bombardment. This is the second skill that you're gonna use for massive AoE clearing. After you've used Explosive Shot, the mobs are pretty much gonna be around you, so you can just drop Bombardment right on top of your head, and it's gonna pretty much save your life. Okay, next one we have Multi-Shot. Now this is a spam skill, and you want to do as much damage with it. It doesn't cost that much mana, so it's pretty, you don't really need the mana rune on it, or the cooldown, since it's on a 3-second cooldown, 62 mana. You need to do as much damage as possible. The secondary one, I got the Frontal Shot, mainly for the movement speed, so I can kite stuff around and not die when I'm solo rifting. And the second one is Electric Explosion. Massive AoE, pretty good crits. I get crits. I once got a crit about 10,000 on it, which is pretty good, pretty nice. So I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with this combo. Hold down shift, first skill, then hold down right click, and you've got a combo right there. Now, if you have someone else tanking for you, and you don't really have to use roll to dodge, you can use roll and go into these. As you can see, roll also increases your attack speed for a short duration, for about 3 seconds, right? And that's pretty much the AoE bar. Now, jumping into the single target. This is mostly for bosses, Rift Guardians, and so on. Basically, giant pool mobs. Alright, so we've got rolling again for the attack speed. This is mainly for attack speed and dodge, because it's the only things that they are the only things that it gives. Secondary, I got smoke screen for the blinding of enemies. When you're fighting a boss, you really don't, you want to get hit by it as less as possible. So smoke screen is one of those skills for survival. It also does a fairly good amount of damage, but it's mostly for the blind, so you can survive more. I got blinding duration, 20% cooldown, so I can spam it as some more, and defense penetration, just in case I run into mobs with skin. The second one, I got green sanctum. I got cooldown, attack speed, and buff duration. I want as much attack speed for when I'm hitting a single target. Why do I want this? Well, for the first two skills, well, the first skill, because the second one doesn't work with attack speed, sadly. So, moving on. Can I go with wind sprint for this one, or madness power? I prefer wind sprint because it gives me a lot more survivability. You dodge all attacks for 1.5 seconds, and I use it mostly to dodge giant boss killing mechanics. And besides that, it's pretty good to keep up with the rest of the party that are rushing through a stage, or finish a rift faster. So for the movement speed, 50% movement speed, 8 seconds, that's pretty good. So I went with cooldown, buff duration, and movement speed. Pretty... I don't know why you would pick anything else other than those three for this one, but that's what I went with. It serves me pretty well during fights. Now, moving on, death sentence. Defense penetration, minus 7% defense, and cooldown. Well, it's a debuff skill. There's not much to say about it. You want it to debuff as much as possible, right? So, there we go. I think defense penetration isn't the best rune for it. You can go with something else if you want, but I just went with that just in case there's a giant elite mob with skin on it. Defense penetration is mostly for skin mobs. Okay, now for the bread and butter of this build, Salvo fires a series of bullets inflicting damage at 45% attack, right? So 45% ain't a lot, right? But increase crit rate by 1%, which is extremely nice. So I got as much damage as possible on this, since it does really low amounts of damage, right? But in combination with all the attack speed, you're gonna have a freaking Tommy machine gun, right? Like you've seen Van Damme in those old movies, like trrrr, you're gonna be pretty much that, right? And electric explosion, it's a skill that you can cast passively, and you don't really need to waste mana points on it, so you can have your mana points for the other skills. And also, it's not a channeling ability. It has pretty much no cooldown, and it's a spammable skill, so you can do it in combination. Now, I will need to find the target. Alright, so this would be your main combo when you're starting off the fight with the boss. Q, W, E, T, hold down left and right mouse click, and everything is pretty much gonna die instantly. Right, as you can see, you're a freaking machine gun, right? Vault, and you shoot even faster. Right, and this would be your main attack combo. So it's Q, W, E, T on the boss or mob, left, right click. Bam, bam. As you can see, everything's pretty much instant death. And like I said, you got a machine gun attached to you with this build. This is a single target build. It's extremely powerful. And you can use it for pretty much any type of boss or giant mob with a lot of HP that's left behind, if you can switch your bars. Okay, that's about it for explanations on the builds and skills. Now for your stats, the main thing you're gonna want to get is crit rate, 30%, which is the maximum in the game. Accuracy, you don't really care about it that much because there's mobs don't really dodge. There aren't really mobs that dodge that much, and if there's a mob with the dodge ability, you're just gonna skip it because the rest of your party is probably not gonna have accuracy as much, and there's no point in bothering with that mob. Right. Next thing you're gonna want after crit rate is crit damage as much as possible as well, evasion, and cooldown reduction. Mana cost reduction, so and so, just whatever you get from passives. It's not really that mandatory, since elves pretty much recover mana instantly with primary abilities. That's about it for me yakking your ear off. I'm gonna show you guys some gameplay of how these builds work. As you guys have seen, that was fairly easy to do. I've only used one mana potion and one rejuvenation potion. Hope you guys like this build, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And let me know what our opinions are. How did this build go for you? Do you have any suggestions, any changes you would do to it? Let me know in the comment section below. This is Acid Burn, signing off.